Hey everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking at something I found super interesting. Have you ever noticed someone with autism and they blink a lot?
Mm-hmm.
So I was reading this article. It's called Autism and Excessive Blinking, a Sensory Exploration. It's from Cheap ABA. And it got me thinking, there's got to be more to it than meets the eye, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's not just a quirk, it's like a window into how people with autism experience the world, you know?
Totally. The article talks about this whole sensory world thing, which I get, but it's kind of vague, right?
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in this context?
Well, imagine if every sense you have is basically turned up to 11. Like lights are brighter, sounds are louder, even smells are stronger, and it's constant.
Whoa, intense. So it's not just that they're more aware of sensory things, it's like they're feeling them way more intensely than neurotypical people.
Exactly. And then imagine trying to focus or process anything with all that going on. It can be incredibly overwhelming. The article even mentions things like clothing labels or certain fabrics feeling unbearable to some people.
Wow, I never thought about that. So is that where the blinking comes in? Like
Oh,
a way to deal with all that?
exactly. Think of it as a way to hit the reset button on all that sensory input, you know? It's a brief respite from the intensity, a way to regain a little bit of control.
That's actually kind of amazing when you think about it. Like something we do without even thinking can be such a powerful tool for someone else.
It is. It's a prime example of what a lot of people call stimming, these repetitive behaviors that help regulate sensory input. It's like finding an oasis of calm in a sensory desert.
That is a great way to put it. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so it's about finding that sense of calm, of control in a world that can feel really chaotic. I'm starting to get it.
And it's not just about managing the outside world either.
Oh.
Yeah, the article also talks about how for some people, blinking a lot can be a way of communicating.
I never thought about it that way. You mean it's not just a reaction, it's actually intentional.
In a way, yeah. Think about it. If someone has trouble using words to express themselves, their body might find other ways to get the message across, you know?
Wow, that's really interesting. So if you see someone with autism blinking a lot, it could be a sign that they're trying to tell you something. Like maybe they're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or something.
Exactly. And the key for us is to learn how to read those signs and respond in a way that's helpful instead of just thinking it's weird or whatever. There's this one example in the article. It talks about this kid who would always start blinking like crazy right before a meltdown.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so once his parents figured out that connection, they could actually start intervening earlier, try different things to calm him down before it got to that point.
That's incredible. It
Hmm.
really shows how much we can miss if we're not paying attention to those little details. It's like learning a whole new language almost. But how do you even tell the difference, right? Like, how do you know if the blinking is a sensory thing or an emotional thing or just, regular blinking?
That's where observation is key, right? The article, it suggests you really try to pay attention to the context. Like,
Yes.
is it happening in certain places more often, crowded places maybe, or during certain activities?
So like looking for triggers or patterns, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, if you're ever really concerned about someone, it's always a good idea to, talk to a professional who can give you more specific advice.
Right, of course. So speaking of advice, the article did have some tips for how to help someone who blinks a lot, right? What were some of those? So speaking of advice, the article did have some tips for how to help someone who blinks a lot, right? What were some of those?
Well, one thing they really emphasized was creating a sensory-friendly environment. Like, think about the things we talked about, bright lights, loud noises, strong smells.
Right, right. So just being more mindful of those things and maybe making some adjustments if you can.
Exactly. And then there are those alternative sensory activities we touched on earlier.
Oh yeah, like the fidget toys and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Things like that, or noise-canceling headphones, weighted blankets, they can all be super helpful. It's about giving them tools to manage their own sensory experience, you know?
It's like that, your own personal toolkit for dealing with the world. That's really cool, actually.
Yeah, it's about empowerment, right? And I think another really important point the article made was about just approaching the behavior with understanding.
Yeah.
Like instead of seeing excessive blinking as something that needs to be stopped, try to see the need it might be fulfilling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So not getting frustrated or trying to force them to stop, but more like, okay, what is this person trying to tell me or what are they trying to manage and how can I help with that?
Exactly. It's a total shift in perspective,
Right.
right? From judgment to curiosity and then to support. And I think when we can do that, when we can approach behaviors like excessive blinking with that kind of empathy, it opens up all these possibilities for connection and understanding.
Wow. I gotta say, this whole conversation's been seriously eye-opening. It's amazing how something as simple as blinking can be so complex and meaningful.
Right. Sometimes the smallest things can tell us the most.
So true. Well, on that note, I guess that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll catch you next time.